Get on the stream. We're just making up our own sound effects. And it's the show. We're live. Hello, folks. Welcome to Post Training. First, before we start, we're going to pour one out for our homeboy, Dan Bernardo. Did not make it today. There's the coffee.
I've got a really good, I've got a really good beer, and I'm not going to waste it. So I'm just gonna, I'll toast one to Dan.
There we go. Here's to Dan, our busy brother. That's coffee and water. Sal, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Doing good. It's been a good week of training, and actually took a rest day today, which is something I haven't done in a while. But my body was telling me I was due for one, so I've been taking it easy.
Yeah, okay. This is kind of the difficulty of being both the guy on the tech side of things and also
this meeting is being recorded.
I don't know if that was people can hear that.
Big scary warning.
Yeah, no. No, well, just making sure that
this meeting is being recorded.
Is that a new feature on Zoom, or am I?
It must be, because I've never seen it. I'm on Zoom calls all day, and I've never seen that pop up saying this is being recorded. Like, whoa, okay, all right.
The AI is taking.
Yeah.
Finally, I can say this week has not been the greatest in terms of training, but it's been the greatest in terms of health I've had for a long time. Because I just got cleared from. I haven't really talked about this, so I think here I'm going to talk about it. So back in October, I had a required X-ray on my chest. It's required for my work. I work in schools. That's not a controversial point. It's what a lot of people do. I had one in last year. I had one in January, and they were like, "You're good." I'm like, "Hooray!" That was prior to Corona and everything else. This has nothing to do with Corona. But then in last October, they took a little picture of my heart, and they were like, "Your heart got bigger. That's a problem." And I was like, "Oh."
I mean, hearts don't normally do that, so yeah.
Yeah. So they were like, it could be one of three things. It could be genetics, which, I got to go to a bunch of labs for. It could be stress, or it could be diet. I gained a little bit of weight through Corona, but not a massive amount. And so I tried to, in like 2 months, I cut down to about 15 pounds. And they looked at my heart again. They're like, not a lot of change, but come back and come get a check in about 6 months. So that was December. We're at the end of May now. So I was like, I'm gonna get my heart checked again. I'm in a place that has a bigger hospital. And I went to the hospital. The first time I went to a big hospital in Japan, and it was kind of funny. I went to the hospital, and I was like, first big time in a big hospital in Japan. It's great. And the power went out.
Oh boy!
In the hospital, just powers out.
Like while they were doing your X-ray, or what?
No. I was just sitting there in the kind of the waiting area, and just power goes out. I was like, because they had like these big fancy processes where like kind of smaller hospitals in Japan. Hospitals in Japan are great, but where I lived before was a little like smaller, and they didn't have as many things. It was a little more basic. But here it was like big and fancy, and they gave me this new card and and then I was just waiting. First 10 minutes, power went out for half an hour. So that was fun. But then, it was just the power outage. They just, they had.
Was there panic in the hallways as life support systems went down, and everybody running and screaming? Because that's what I'm picturing in my head.
In Japan, everyone was just like, okay, and it's just like, people waited. People, just, and they came back. It was fine. And about 4 hours later, the doctor, after EKGs and echoes and X-rays and just about a couple other tests, they took my blood away for science, and then they were like, okay, it's gone down to acceptable levels. Though it's still a little bit up there, what you do need to do is just get down in weight. And I was like, that is the most relieving thing I've ever heard. I've heard in the last 6 months. So I was like, hooray! I
Wow.
wanted to hug the doctor, but I'm like, no, coronavirus still. So
And maybe you were just like, I don't know, turning into the Grinch or something. Didn't his heart get bigger and the Grinch stole Christmas or something?
yeah, but that's actually not a good thing. That means the Grinch had extreme hypertension. That means the years of being a terrible person finally caught up with him. So, um,
Well,
so
I'm
that
glad it turned out okay.
yeah, that's my story of the week. It has nothing to do with training, but everything to do with health. But I also like my last week I had a really good week of training, but it also kicked up my Achilles tendonitis. So I've been stretching and kind of PTing that, trying to grab the word there. So, what has your week been training consisted of? Hopefully, no hospital visits.
No, no, thankfully, no hospital visits. Clipped myself on the shins and the ankles a few times with some maces this week, but that's sort of par for the course. Um, but yeah, no, it's been a good week of training. It's been nice this week. We've had some people that took a hiatus during the pandemic to step away from training. They've been steadily making their way back to the dojo this week, so it's been good to see people. We've had some new people join our training class, and that's been that's been interesting because I sort of taught the same core group of people throughout the whole pandemic. We sort of became a pretty tight knit little group, and they range from intermediate ranks up to brown belts and shodans, and so training was sort of at that level, and now I've got white belts for the first time in a very long time, and so it's been sort of shifting my gears a little bit. Like, okay, wait, I gotta change my approach here because these people have not been through the pandemic with me, and they're
Yeah.
not like my core group sort of knows what to expect. So I had to sort of adjust my teaching style a little bit this week, but overall training's been good, and it's been good to see people coming back.
Well, and what do you think? What's interesting there is every time I've had that situation where it's just a one or two or even a group of new people come in, especially after maybe a period of only working with people who have some experience or a lot of experience. What do you feel especially through everything that's happened in the last year, do you feel you were able to bring to that group that maybe prior you didn't have in your wheelhouse?
Hmm. I think for me, and it's interesting because I was talking to Pedro about this earlier. Um, I learned a lot during the pandemic about how to sort of pressure test my own techniques and sort of use different tools and props for getting that sort of physical feedback you need to check like your structure and your power generation and everything. And that's something that I've been able to carry over to training my students now. And it's actually, prior to the pandemic, we really didn't use a whole lot of props or tools or anything other than in Kobudo, obviously you've got tools in your hands, but maybe a resistance bands here and there. But now every day, every time we train, we're picking up either a mace or something to help people sort of start feeling some of those internal connections that take some time to grasp. And if you can get them to hold something that will help them get that feedback early, then they can start grasping those things sooner in their training. Even if they're just a white belt, it's good to start feeling those things early.
Well, yeah, because I think that's where a lot of people get a little. I don't know, they're doing like air karate. Um,
Yeah.
but this TV show that I hate, what is it? It was like one of the Marvel ones. What was it called? Iron Lad. No, Iron Fist. And it was kind of this terrible kung fu show that they did. I think
Yep.
they're trying to make up for it. But it's like at
Yep.
one point, the gay guy from Game of Thrones was just like, "Your punches are like leaves in the wind," and da 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 da. And it was just like trying to be weirdly kung fu-y, but he's like kind of not wrong there because especially when you have people who have no this is something I used to do, and I think it was stupid then, but I don't think it was wrong. It was wrong headed. It was just done incorrectly. Was I
Uh-huh.
used to have people who just started when they were doing this thing just punched me in the stomach. And I
Hmm.
was like, feel that. Feel hitting something. And when you
Hmm.
actually feel that it's not about the strength, it's about the structure.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
if you're and this is a problem I had for a long time, if you're going to collapse like that,
Right.
what happens for a lot of people, even though they think they're
Hmm.
doing that right, they're just going to end up collapsing into to that without necessarily having that. As someone once said to me in an odd way, correct molecular structure.
Sure.
So
Yeah. 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 I find now, and I don't know that I did this so much, pre-pandemic, but now when I'm making corrections on students, regardless of their level, it's more about, I'm looking at the lines that they're making and sort of, so if they're in that, just making that chudan ski sort of thing, I'm looking at just their alignment from the tip of those two knuckles through that arm down through their hip and to the back heel. And so I'm
right,
looking at the shapes that they're making more than the little details like, okay, yeah, sure, maybe they're a white belt and their thumb's sticking out. Well, we'll fix that later. But I care more that their actual direction and alignment is better because if nothing else, at least they've got the early stages of a good structure there. And that's probably a big shift from the way I used to teach, where I would have been a little bit more nitpicky about the cosmetic details and less about the functional details.
that's huge. Like that's where I feel a lot of people tend to glance over those details for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Oh, you got it. Okay, keep going." But then, those more fundamental things are taken care of at the beginning. You can't
Right.
fix those other things towards the end.
Yeah. It's sort of like, you're not treating the symptom, you're treating the cause. You're trying to get to the root issue more. And, when students will ask questions like, well, sensei, is my block supposed to be here? Or is it supposed to be here? Is it supposed to be here? Is it supposed to be here? I'm like, all right, well, at the end of the day, it's sort of cosmetic, but what's important is that you're connected to your lats. Your arm is connected to your lats, and your lats are connected to your hip, and your hip's connected to everything else. So if you're extending your arm too much, you're losing that. So where that is for you may sort of vary slightly, but it's important that you understand the rest of the connection and how that works with the rest of your body.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
that's and
different.
that's. Oh, sorry.
I say it's just different from the way I used to teach.
Yeah, and that's gonna it plays a big factor when it actually comes to the use of it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this a friend of mine who does a lot of the full contact like with the gear kumite.
Oh
It's
yeah,
something
yeah.
he's pointed out to me a lot where it's just there's you can have the hit happen in the kumite that'll you can see it, but if you can't visibly see shaking or not shaking but visibly see an impact, then that hit didn't mean anything. Even if
Mm.
there was no gear, and yeah, it might have hurt or might have distracted somebody, which is different
Right.
in more of the quote unquote self defense context as opposed to the kumite context. It's still a matter of if that hit doesn't visibly shake or rock somebody, then
Mm-hmm.
it didn't connect. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have that right structure and you're not training that right structure,
Yep.
especially when you see gloves on, right? You can't get the do it
That,
get it
yeah,
right
you
that way.
lose that tactile feedback. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, so I mean, and you're doing the Lord's work there in terms of in terms of making sure that's right.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think one thing we maybe had talked about a little before is getting on was just the issues of people possibly limiting your training. I think that's a good might be a good example of that is where you get to the point where you're nitpicking people, and then these nitpicks become the art. It becomes like
Mm-hmm.
that point on their teaching checklist. Oh, he
Sure.
made this mistake. Oh, okay, well we're getting there, right?
Yep.
But there's that foundation's not there. Do you feel
Yes.
like as you were coming up that might have in fact maybe impacted how the art was being passed down?
Yeah, for sure. I think when early in my training, when I was probably, a fresh shodan where, you think you know everything and, you think you're hot stuff, particularly when you're in a very small town dojo where, you're the only shodan amongst, maybe 8 other Q ranks and then you have your sensei. Um, at that time I was definitely just making the shapes of karate and, making air karate until, I had someone come around and actually start testing my structure, and I was just collapsing and falling down. And, I was sort of like, whoa, what's happening here? It was sort of a very humiliating yet humbling and eye-opening experience. And so, from that point on, I started looking at, there's more to this than just being able to, anybody can make a block like this, but, to make it actually work and apply it and everything requires a lot more. And that's where the years and years of study come from. And, anymore, I think, for with my students, it doesn't take much to teach them how to punch or how to throw a maigeri or something like that. What takes time is teaching them to make it functional. And so we spend more time probably now on exercising and building those internal foundational structures than actually doing the kicking, because the kicking will sort of get better as a byproduct of working on that structure. So you're sort of continuing to build the engine inside, and then everything else sort of slowly starts to benefit as a result.
Oh, right, and that's where I feel like, especially with folk I've worked for, they've focused on the application to get to that point. Like the idea of the engine being right.
Mm-hmm.
If that a good example I love to use is like, especially when people do is the single block, and they do double and high. Right? There's a it's a big thing in the system that I've worked with is doing that combination of movements, not just doing one movement. And a lot of hay had been made about like, well, we don't do it like this. We have movement inside the movement. See, and stuff like that. But what that skips over is a foundational part, is getting this correct,
right,
to the point where that can be functional and therefore useful.
right.
But skipping over that, like kind of trying to see the end goal, but not getting started in the beginning.
Right.
I think most karate does that anyway, but
Mm-hmm.
just didn't articulate itself in different ways. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I completely agree. And a lot of times it's it's not so much about what you're doing, whether you're doing this sequence like this or you have more fluidity to it. It's not so much the way you do it. It's how for me anyway, it's how it's structured. I don't care if you can be real snappy like this. If you're only using just your arms and your shoulders to do that motion and you're ignoring everything else in your body, I mean, it's useless technique. I mean, you have to be able to power it from your core and from everything else. And, if you can't make that thing work, then, no technique you throw is really going to do much.
Yeah, and then that's where there's no magic. I keep on coming back to this point as of late. There's no magic.
No.
You can't. And this way a lot of people want that. Like it's weird. Like they think just doing this motion a slightly different way, or just getting this slightly different way of doing something, will suddenly change something when it comes to a real situation.
Sure.
And yeah, maybe, but
Maybe. Probably not.
But I mean, the thing is, like, it's not going to be the magic you want it to be. You might
Right.
know a lot of tricks and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing that more foundational stuff in your art and your training, then
Yeah.
you're just doing tricks.
Exactly. And that's where, I think the sort of the meaning and the purpose behind doing just that regular keyhole practice has sort of been, I don't want to say it's been lost, but I think it's sort of widely misunderstood in that, people think, well, you do keyhole to get good at doing keyhole, when really, and I think I want to credit, I think it's Scott Langley that I heard say, you do keyhole to teach your body how to move properly. And, it's sort of helping you build that foundation. And so then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're, marching up and down in the dojo floor in Zen Kutsadachi, making your punches, or you're just bouncing around freely like you might be in an actual, violent encounter. You've built that foundation through your keyhole, and that's what you're doing when you're making those techniques. But the purpose behind it, I think, has been widely misunderstood, or is being lost.
Yeah, and I don't. I don't want to say that everyone's doing that. I feel like we're actually probably going more towards a point as a, I don't say as a community, because just how things are right now, it's hard to really gauge whether or not there's a community. Um,
Mm.
but my hope is from the digital engagement I think everyone's gone through is to kind of re-examine that and to not just echo chamber,
Sure.
because I think probably a year or so ago, not a year or so, I don't want to say more like 5 years ago, if someone had said to me, you're gonna hang out with a Shotokan guy for a little while, you're gonna actually start like building a friendship with him, I would have been like, really? I don't think so. I've been pretty indoctrinated to think they're all just, they don't know anything about anything, and I'm just like,
Sure.
no, I'm like, no, this guy's completely right on everything he says. Listen to him, all right. Don't
Sure.
look at
Sure.
me. I'm a Buddha. He's an Adonis.
Right. Right.
Reference. That's a deep cut. To a small conversation that you had at 4 in the morning. Last weekend was fun for so many different reasons, but
That was great. I thought I was going to go back to sleep after that meeting, but no, I ended up staying up and just hanging out. But it was good.
yeah,
I enjoy those chats.
I think that was probably the best meeting I had that day. Outside of, oh no, that was the best meeting I had that day. But I think you mentioned steel on shins, and I know this comes out of nowhere, but there's an apocryphal story that I heard about steel and karate. Um, so it's like when people do the Goju guys do like this on shin and do that
Mm-hmm.
type
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
I heard one particular teacher, who was not a part of that, would go around and they would just be, all right, hit him, hit him, hit him. And so he would, in his gi, he would hide like a metal bar
Oh wow.
and just go kaboom. And those guys would just buckle over when they do that. It's like, you can
Wow.
take the flesh, but you can't take the metal. So I'm like, yeah, Sal would probably be able to deal with that.
Yeah. I don't know.
At this point,
I mean, am I the one doing the hitting or am I on the receiving end? It just depends.
he's now more mace than man now.
Twisted and evil.
I don't think so. But so one thing I think maybe we can get into a little is talking about, I guess, limitations, because I feel that's part and parcel to lacking Keyhone, but also lacking. It's I always see things as a circle. So you start from this position, you always start from this basic, and then you kind of go around, kind of, and you can be as advanced and fancy and whatnot, but you're always going to come back to that basic. And that's how I see lessons, and that's how I see practice a lot. Well, what do you think puts limitations on us from a physical perspective, and what do you think puts limitations on us from, I don't know, the quote unquote outside influences or internal influences, like from teachers and stuff like that?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, in my experience, I've sort of seen people put different types of limitations on themselves. One of the ones that sort of irks me a lot is, you hear people say like, "Oh, I really love to try karate," or "I'd really love to get into karate, to yoga. Maybe I'm just not flexible enough, though. I really want to start karate, but I need to wait till I'm stronger. I need to wait till I lose some weight. I need to wait till this. I need to wait till that." And so they've already put those limitations on themselves because they think they have to have. There's like this prerequisite level of either fitness or something that has to be there before they can actually start. And in reality, you just need to start. So that's one that I encounter a lot, and whenever I hear someone tells me that, I really try to push them and say, no, just dive in. Yeah, I don't care what it is, whether it's not even might not even be just a physical exercise, but that sort of thing. Thinking that you need to have something before you can start. That's always bothered me. But really, the other thing that I encounter is just those stylistic sort of limitations where they say, well, is maybe we'll have someone do a headbutt or something when we're working on kata application. Oh, sensei, we don't ever do headbutts in our kihon. No, we probably not in our kihon, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. Like, if you got the opportunity to do it, do it.
You have a head?
Yeah, exactly.
There's the ball. Hit your head on the ball.
Yeah, exactly. But it's those they think that they limit they limit what they do by what their style tells them is available to them. And I don't care what style you do. I mean, it's all about human movement. And so I try not to worry so much about, oh, well, that's an Aikido technique, or that's a jiu-jitsu technique, or that's a judo technique. I sort of see karate as being, it's all encompassing. It's everything. It's human movement. So if I do a throw and someone says, hey, you can't do that. That's out of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm like, well, I don't care. It worked. What does it matter?
I just changed the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
As an old sensei of mine had, he was a good martial artist, but he was like a teacher, and he was like one of those guys who would like walk into a place and like they would say, "No, we can't do that. That's against policy." You just changed the policy. So
I will make it legal.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yep. But yeah, that's the sort of stuff just irks the hell out of me sometimes. And I do karate and I do kobudo. In terms of cross training, I've never done much cross training in other martial arts. I'm fortunate that the dojo that I teach at, we also do we teach Aikido, we teach Iaido, Kendo, and Judo. They're not arts that I participate in, but I still sort of get, because I'm the sensei that teaches those classes is a mentor to me. I get a lot of that through sort of osmosis, but it's also all in the karate. I sort of look at it as all being the same. I don't look at them through stylistic lenses. Like, we do Nikkyo and Aikido. I do Nikkyo and karate as well. Just because it's, I'm wearing karate gi and not hakama doesn't mean I can't do Nikkyo. It's those sorts of limitations I think are pretty artificial, and yeah, they just sort of bug me.
Well, and I think that's interesting that those are all also like Nihon Jinron no, like that's a very Japanese, it's pretty much a Japanese dojo. Like it's very like in that style. Like, how I had been brought up was initially like very American eclectic. Supposedly American eclectic. Okay. And I feel it's very weird for people to think we have to limit ourselves to X, especially when most people. I don't live in the States anymore, but I'm from the States, and I think the strongest thing I can say about the country I'm from, you live in, and we're both citizens of, is that we tend to put things together from different places and try to hodgepodge something together that works. We're a mishmash of that. It sounds like weirdly nationalistic, but I mean that's kind of just the place we come from.
Absolutely.
Even though there's roots everywhere. So for anyone, what's weird is anyone who comes from that place then to go, no, you can't go X, Y, and Z. No, you can't do X, Y, and Z.
You can't attend that seminar because it's not part of our federation, or it's not, you can't go get instruction from somebody else. And I agree.
Yeah, and it is like anti what we grew up with, right? Like I don't know how different Illinois is from Philly, but it's like we're free, we're Americans, we can do whatever we want.
Oh, sure, yeah.
This is a bit of a destructive attitude, but like if we're gonna take it to that limit, and because I live in Japan, no one would give a rat's whatever if people went to different places to train and work with other
That's great.
People.
Yeah, that's good. That's
generally speaking, but obviously everyone's got their little politics here and there, but So I think it's the great thing about our buddy James, that I think he helped a lot of people overcome that through what he's been doing in Okinawa. So
Mm-hmm.
two people doing the Lord's work and a dirtbag like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think if we go from like that limitation, I think the physical limitations of, because I experienced this too, where it's like I'm too fat so I can't get karate done, or no I can't, because I've it's something I've struggled with, to be honest, where it's like, man, like 2 years ago this would have been easy. Now, how do I keep this? How do I keep myself in this place where I'm going to be in shape and I'm going to be able to continue to go? And the fact that I continue to go is going to keep me in shape. But then, like 2 weeks off, now I'm just suddenly can't do it anymore. So that's something I sincerely struggle with.
Mm. Yeah.
But I can
Yeah.
sympathize. Sorry,
Yeah.
right in.
I was just going to ask you. I said, so I mean, what have you done to try to address that for your own training? I mean, do you have a set training schedule, or do you just?
I can. Is it over there? No, it's somewhere. Like I'm literally, the training schedules are. I have to keep it in here. I can't put it on here. The moment I put it on here, it goes out of here, and then it doesn't happen.
Sure. Yeah.
Like it's like I can make a long schedule of like I will do this and X, Y, and Z, and then none of it gets done because like I don't know, I'm watching TV. Like or like I will find something else to do with the time. But if I say X time, Y thing, go, it gets done. It might not be everything you want it to be, but if you focus on that like one fundamental thing, then you've gotten that training in.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing I got done this week was just meditating, which
That's
is
something.
weird to say. Yeah, it is something because it clears that space to be able to actually do other things. And I think that's a part of training that it gets neglected for a lot of people. And depending on the culture, like where I live, it's not really a thing, but it is something that is in fact taught in the schools. When they start school, when they start a period, they'll have a period of like book soul.
Really? Okay.
Yep. The beginning of first period, second period, third period, fourth period, fifth period, sixth period. Most schools will have something like that. Might not have the meditation, like where like not the meditation, but like the just clear your mind. Like close your eyes. All right, stand up.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that's a culture thing. But it comes from something positive, which is something I appreciate.
Yeah. What age group do you work with?
Well, if I said that, then
what age group do you work with?
Oh, like all ages. Like my profession.
Really?
I can't really talk about a lot of it because of reasons, but generally, what I've worked from with 3-year-olds to the elderly. So my professional life. So because it means just the life of the being an ESL teacher means you pretty much cover the whole gambit. A lot of my experience has been with elementary and junior high. So being like the elementary schools have kind of seeing where that starts from a cultural place is interesting because it helps kind of understand, all right, that's kind of where the roots of it are. But what was interesting was I can say this. I did see a mixed group of junior high and elementary school students recently go through an exercise. It wasn't karate, but something very similar to karate, an exercise for a sports day. And it was really great because they had all the little guys from like very, very like young, from like first grade till like sixth grade, all try to learn something. And they only had a couple of the junior high schoolers. But the junior high schoolers were teaching them how to do it. Sal, did I lose you? Yep. Here you are.
My dogs are barking. My dogs are barking, and I was trying to mute myself.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Um, but they were leading that group, this like group of kids, and teaching them movements and stuff. And I'm like, hey, this is a karate class, right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not karate, but that's karate class right there. And it was so
Yeah.
fun to see. It was so fun to see.
That's awesome.
And it was so fun to see like the teachers were supporting them, like the junior high schoolers, teaching them, but there were some junior high schoolers who didn't feel comfortable teaching the kids, but they try to show the movements. There's some junior high schoolers who were, uh, they just kind of went around and corrected, and there were some junior high schoolers that were just leaving. And I'm like, that's karate class right there. It's not karate, but that's karate class. So
Yeah.
um, I think that was one of the best things I've seen recently. Even though
That's
it's not
cool.
karate, it kind of is karate. So,
Yes. No. It's still there. Yeah. Very neat.
cool. So, Sal, what do you think going into the next week? What do you think you're going to be working on, especially with your new group of your fresh face force, as it were?
Yeah. So, big change for me this week, starting this week anyway, is so I'm adding some additional time slots for my classes. I've never offered a morning training of any kind, and so we're adding a morning class on Wednesdays at 6 a.m. So I'm going to be teaching early in the mornings, which is fine for me because I'm an early morning person. So that'll be one thing that's going to be new happening this week. But to sort of ensure that I can stay married. When my wife heard that I was going to be adding more classes at the dojo, she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna figure something out." So I'm gonna have some of my senior students take over my Monday night class and my Wednesday night class, which is I've had people cover my classes for me if I've not been around or had something going on, but I've never actually said, no, this class is yours now. Sort of to help build some succession planning with the class and the dojo and everything. If I don't give my seniors opportunities to teach and I do all of it, then they don't get to learn. So they're gonna get their chance to start doing some teaching of their own, other than just assisting me. And so that's happening this week, and we have our first steel mace classes happening a week from tomorrow. So that's going to be new. Doing them just in person to start, and as I sort of figure out how I want to structure the classes, because the way I approach steel mace training doesn't really have much structure to it, and so I've never really taught fitness classes. So I'm going to be kind of making this up as I go along, and once I get a handful of classes under my belt, I'll be opening up some virtual time slots as well, so that I can if there's anybody over Zoom who wants to take a class with the steel mace, we'll have those as well. But so some new stuff happened this week, and just the usual. Other than that, just the usual training. Wife and I are going to go do some climbing, I think, on Sunday, up in Chicago. So that's going to be fun, and just my usual day-to-day training that I always do.
Cool. It's awesome.
What about you?
This week, I'm gonna go off and on. One day off, one day on. That's my goal. And just to be one day on, and then on like the off day, not make it just completely off, but just more focus on a form that I've been working on for a long time that is frustrating and somewhat impossible to learn for various reasons. I know this sounds like, wait, wow, why is it impossible to learn? Because it kept on getting changed, and
Oh,
yeah, because it was a composite creation from somebody, and then they taught somebody, and then they changed it, and then they taught another person, and
sure.
they changed it. Blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, deciding on this one version of it, and gonna try to work on filming it, and then sending it to the person who I've been off and on working with it on, and just try to focus on like, all right, we're gonna get this down finally, and just have it learned and done, and try to integrate it properly.
Yeah. How do you approach learning a new kata or form or like that? So I know some people can kind of watch it once or twice and be like, "Yep, got it," and some people have to really take it, maybe a few pieces at a time, and just that's all they'll do for a period of time before they add more. So what's your approach on that?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I've never tried to whole cloth learn anything from scratch, um,
Okay.
except for one kata for Niseishi. Niseishi, I had to actually learn from a video originally
Hmm.
because, and I never do anything without not knowing that I can get someone to show me it later or work with me on it. But the Niseishi was one of the first ones that I had to learn how to do that with because Niseishi is one of those katas that there's not many people do, not many people know, and then this version was not something that. The particular challenge with this other one is deprogramming some things I had learned previously
Mm.
and kind of reprogramming other stuff and trying to rewrite the muscle memory.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and sometimes that means you just have to kind of make your muscles forget how to do it so you
yeah,
can jump back on that. So,
yeah.
um, but I guess my basic approach is just you have to chunk it, break it down, break it down, break it down, break
Okay.
it down. So the problem this is a consistent problem with some of the stuff that I've done, especially with Kobudo, because there's like system I do. There's basically only 12 katas, the secret 13th one, but with the Kobudo, it's like maybe there's 50 katas, maybe there isn't. Who knows?
Yeah, the Kobudo that I do, I think in the whole curriculum that yeah, it's like 50 plus kata or something. It's kind of crazy. And you've got different versions of the same kata. So like a
Yeah,
Chun no Kon Ichi, Chun no Kon Ni, Sakuga. We've got like 3 versions of Sakugawa no Kon, multiple versions of
that's
Tsukuyoshi.
advertising. You don't have the
Yeah,
right version of Sakagawa. I have the right version of Sakagawa.
that's
Who's got
right.
the right version of Sakagawa? You
Yeah,
know what? It's advertising.
yeah. I have all of them, so I win.
All right, that's fine.
But yeah, yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to take on. It is.
I want to create that Spider-Man meme where it's like, "You're not the real Spider-Man. I'm the real Spider-Man, but just do it with Sakagawa." You're not the real Sakagawa. I'm the real Sakagawa. No, I'm the real Sakagawa.
There you go.
Cool, cool. Well, Sal, thanks so much for joining us today, or joining me. Pouring one
Yeah, no
out for
problem. My
our.
pleasure.
Yeah, no, you kind of came in at the last minute, and we're like, "Oh, so in your jovial way with your beer, and like, oh, I'll save you, John." So, that was an interesting thing that we caught off camera. So it's not going to be on the stream, but it will be apocryphal at least. So
We'll do a dramatic reenactment later with
yes, and then it will be
actors
canonized.
and yes.
Cool. Well, sir, thank you so much, and everybody else, have a good week. Keep training.